All right. So, the newest Primus album, interesting to say the least. What's it called?
Of course, Primus is always interesting, but it's called The Desaturating Seven.
The Desaturating Seven, and it came out September 29th of 2017.
Yes.
Now, this is one of the I think this is the shortest album we've looked at.
Yeah. 35 minutes long.
Yeah, 34:38 exactly.
Okay, whatever.
And it was released on Prawn Song Records, which is Primus's own, was Les Claypool's own record label.
Of course he has his own record label.
Yes, and this stars this is like the first original album they've all written together since 1995.
Really?
Yeah.
Didn't realize it'd been that long.
Yeah, I mean they've had
feels like just yesterday.
They've had tons of albums in between, but this is the first that they've all like co-written together.
Mm.
And let's get right into it. Starting off with The Valley.
Us out of it, filling their bellies with its bright liquid.
All right, The Valley.
Okay, so The Valley is the intro song of the album, of course.
We'd like to start by saying this is the first Primus album we've ever listened to. And no, we don't have to listen to the other Primus albums to listen to this album. This is a fresh perspective on Primus.
Yeah, and because, on listening to, I didn't realize it was a concept album at first.
Yeah.
So listening to the first song, I went, oh shit, is this a concept album? So, in theory, it should stand alone better for being a concept album.
Yes. So The Valley, it starts off with this really sort of squeaky sound. I would almost describe it as either, well, even before that, it has a sort of, which I would describe it as either like a carousel merry-go-round turning, or like the way I imagine it, as we'll get more into the later songs, is a unicycle with a clown on it squeaking along, which makes more sense as you go along with the album, but it's very weird. And then it becomes this very sort of acoustic clean, half beautiful melodic, like classical folk sort of sound, half really sort of haunting, just discordant enough to be creepy, I would say.
Yes.
And then it's weirdly narrated, which I assume
It's an intro, though. Intros I think it's acceptable for an intro song to be a little narrational.
Yes, but this intro to this song, which is 4.5 minutes long, is 2 minutes long. The intro to just this song, and we've had problems with 2 minute long intros in the past.
That's true.
And this is just kind of weird, especially with, like I said, So this is a concept album based on a book called The Rainbow Goblins.
See, the whole time I was listening to this album, I'm like, this should be some weird children's movie that isn't really a children's movie, like, kind of like Labyrinth.
Well, no, it's funny that you mentioned that, because to me, especially the way this begins with that sort of plinky tone, is kind of labyrinthy, but to me, it's more, anyone who's seen the old animated Lord of the Rings films, it's definitely much more like that in feel. And this whole album feels very sort of 60s, 70s, throwbacky.
I mean, that's why the cover looks so 70s.
Well, that's from the Rainbow Goblins.
Oh, is it just taken from the book?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, there you go. And it's by Ulde Rico, apparently. But, so the song finally starts at 2 minutes in. Mm-hmm. And,
has this weird-ass vocal filter.
It's very, like, warbling and snowing underwater.
Yeah.
I don't know how to describe it.
Sounds like you're under shallow water.
Yeah, but then, like I said, this whole intro is very odd. It's got this awesome sort of simple bass riff in the second half, but other than that, I would say this is a very weird song and serves mostly just as an intro to the album.
But it feels like I would have almost been happier if they just took the first 2 minutes as an intro song and then, like, ditched the rest.
Yeah, I can agree with you there. Unlike the next song, which is absolutely fantastic, also known as
The Seven.
All right, The Seven. What about this song? What do you think?
I really like this song, actually.
Yeah, this song is really good.
It just starts off right away with the bass riff, which is... Yeah, it's very marchy
and fun. I would say it's very much... I wrote this song, and including the words we'll talk about in a minute, is what's going on in Dr. Seuss's head all the time.
Except a little less creepy. Or the song is more creepy.
I don't know. Have you read a lot of the Dr. Seuss books? They're kind of dark and weird.
I guess maybe not.
Anyway. But no, this song is great. And he uses like 2 different vocal tones during the singing of this song.
Yeah.
The verse has a lot of... it's got groove and this weird nasally clean vocal tone. That's the 7 goblins. They are colored red, green, blue, yellow, indigo, violet. Well, it's really sort of fun and marchy and silly and kind of like... Well, like I said, I imagine how the Lorax speaks. Mm-hmm. I didn't see the Lorax movie, but that's how I imagine he sounds.
But then in the chorus, it goes to, like, how I imagine Les Claypool always sounding, which is...
There is a race driver.
Driving so gosh darn fast.
Will make it last. Yes, absolutely. The chorus is... I wrote
the Desaturating Seven.
The completely not understandable words in the chorus except the Desaturated Seven is what I would say. But, that being said, whereas the verse has this sort of like... Les Claypool goes, I can't stand how slow this bass is going anymore, and goes sort of like with this fast, groovy, sort of slap bassy for the verse. And this whole thing, if you don't know Primus, which is weird because you're looking up a Primus review, but he's a really like one of the best bassists ever, hands down. Yeah. And so he loves.
So of course he has to make prog music.
Yeah, and the bass is like really forwardly mixed. Yeah. It's really that's where a lot of the sound is coming from.
If any band has a lead bass. It's Primus.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, it's kind of funny because speaking of the guitar, like we didn't talk about much about the guitar in the last song, and this song too. At the end, there's this sort of like 70s sci-fi guitar lead thing going on. Didn't know how to describe it.
I just wrote, it's a little wonky.
Yeah, it's just it feels, and for me, the rest of the album in a way feels like they're like the guitarist whose name is his name is like Larry, I think.
Sure.
And they call him Lair, I believe. And it seems like he's looking for something to do this whole album, is what I would say. I don't know if that's true, but it might be. Moving on, we have quite the trek of a song. This is the longest song on the album.
Yep.
And it is The Trek.
The Trek.
It's quite a trek of a song, so it's
nearly 8 minutes.
Yeah. I don't think it needed to be 8 minutes.
Yeah, it had a surprisingly simple structure for being so long.
Yeah, right.
It was just kind of like verse, chorus, verse.
Yeah, it was
interlude, verse, chorus, or whatever.
And then in the end, it had this sort of interesting outro that was also the post-chorus at one point. Anyway, we'll get into it. But the intro is this, like I said, it's that very pleasant acoustic clean sound again with just enough discordance to be kind of creepy.
I wrote, cannot use normal scales, can he? It's like...
Well, that's prog.
Yeah, it's just like, it feels like it's gonna be a normal, like, arpeggio of some sort, and then the last note is off. Like, it almost feels like they're like, oh, what's the creative thing to do here? Oh, let's just raise the last note by a half step. Well, that'll be spooky.
Well, I mean, it's not bad. It's very interesting and it plays on the ear. And the fact is, when Les Claypool was talking about this song, when he was talking about writing this album, he was like, well, you know, when the kids were, I believe called them kidlets even, were running around at the end of the day, we would take them to bed and read them a book, so they would go to bed. And this one I loved so much because of its sort of dark imagery and dark story of like greed and gluttony. And so there's definitely a degree of that childlike. Like I said, we both agree that this sounds like half like kids album, half prog, weird, dark story-driven album. And yeah, so that discordance is creepy. But then it gets into the verse, which I said is the most boring part of this entire album.
Yep. I'd say it's the second most boring part of this album, which the most boring part is somewhere else. But yeah, I wrote that it's got a slow, epic lead-in to nothing, because then the verse is like just ambient.
Well, it's this.
It's very ambient
it's this
sounding.
It's these two notes being twanged back and forth repeatedly, endlessly, with these sort of like Pink Floyd style guitar like tweedle things happening every now and then. These really sort of ambient things thrown in. And I would say that that's really, really long and boring. And that intro and that verse, which nothing really happens.
I wrote the first verse feels like a trek.
Oh snap! Wrecked. But then the pre-chorus picks it up with this sort of like circus announcer doing this operatic vocal. It's like, what? And then it finally gets I wrote like at nearly 3 minutes. Yeah, nearly 3 minutes in. 2.5 minutes.
When the bass kicks in and it's like, yes, where was that hiding the whole time?
Yeah, and it's this awesome, like, groovy, slappy riff that's really good, and the guitar is like, they're just interplaying really well together. And I wrote the most singable chorus on the album by far and away. They're over that hill, Do
we remember any of the words? No.
It's over that hill. It's definitely something they say a lot in this chorus.
Yeah.
It's very singable. It's very repetitive. And
very singable relative
to Primus. But I would say then that's what makes this song the most. I would say if this album had radio hits, the Trek would be the radio hit. I would feel because it's inoffensive, it's simple, and it's easy to sing relatively.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and I just wanted to point out, like, a cool lyric that I heard is filling those days with a lackadaisical malaise. It's such a pretty, like, he does
Dr.
that.
Seuss.
He does that a lot. He does, like, internal rhyme within lines, which I really like. That's, like, often a thing that I've only heard rappers do before.
Primus is the alt-prog rock rapper.
No, it's not. I'm not saying this is similar to rap in any way, except for using internal rhyme in individual sentences.
Yeah. And the last thing I can really say about this is there's this pre-chorus thing, but then it's post-chorus thing that eventually becomes the outro, which is this almost like 70s rock over the bass where it's like, it reminds me so much of the intro to Play the Funky Music, White Boy. That's it's this very sort of plinky, funky, sort of get down 70s style guitar.
Yeah.
That
I wrote this kind of like a build. It feels like a build up because it's like kind of increasing in intensity, and then it just builds up to nothing.
To the end of the song.
to the song ending. I guess that's something you look forward to.
Well, I'd say it builds up to the next song, which the next song has a lot of tension in it.
It's true.
But all in all, I think the outro of this song really is out of place because it doesn't flow into the next song's theme or the way it sounds or anything.
And it doesn't, I feel like it doesn't really fit with this song, and it doesn't really fit with the next song.
But it is a cool little outro riff that I really enjoyed, that being said. But speaking of the next song, The Scheme.
Yep.
Yeah, I didn't have a pun for that.
Anyway, The Scheme.
Second shortest song on the album at 2 minutes and 50 seconds long. And I quite like this song.
Yeah, I liked it a lot too. The riff is like the one riff the song uses. Yeah. Like, and the guitar just does the accent notes there.
Speaking of, I said the guitar in this whole song feels kind of ancillary. It's kind of just doing, like, it's playing the root chord almost to what the bass lead is doing.
Yeah. Which is kind of, I think, how this whole album kind of does. Well, except when the guitar has, like, a little squeedle.
Well, see, I don't know how Les Claypool does normally, but I imagine that that's kind of how the albums sound altogether. I don't know if that's true, because I only know one Primus song, and that's Jared's Race Car Driver, and I don't even know how that song, like, sounds guitar versus bass, because all I hear is the bass. Anyway, this song itself is, like I said, it's very short. It uses just basically one bass riff with some fills and some interesting things during the chorus, but it's basically not it's not intense. It's not
and I wrote
crazy groovy.
The chorus about this song, it has this da da da, like this cool like chord progression that they only do once in each repeat of the chorus, and it's like, bro, you should repeat that more because it's this cool like ascending riff that's in good contrast to the low like really repetitive verse riff, but they only do it once. And it's the most melodic singing, I think, of the whole album is in that beginning of the chorus part. But the whole chorus is only like 2 measures. And it really should be longer.
Yeah. Like I said, the problem with the song is it feels like... Well, it comes right about the middle of the album. The Scheme is the 4th or 5th song. And there are only 7 songs on this album. It's a really short album, considering how long some of the songs are. And this really feels like the sort of... Well, it's the scheme. It's, it's how they're preparing to steal the prettiest rainbow in all of the land from the valley. If you haven't read The Rainbow Goblins, it's on YouTube. There's like a video of all of it. So that's weird. But yeah, this is them scheming towards it. And I'll say this song is good, except in like about the middle, when there's this bridge where it's just you ask like, what instrument is playing right now? Because it kind of sounds like drums, but it's really just him really mutedly slapping the bass really fast and repeatedly. And I said that it was a percussive solo, but really it's like bass drums that aren't doing anything melodic at all. And for a song that's 250, to have an entire section that's just sort of like with no melodic sounds, I know that was weird. That's what it sounds like, though.
Yeah.
I'd
say that there's, like, I guess maybe we'll talk about this at the end, but that does a theme throughout the whole album is having interplay between non-melodic, like, muted bass notes and the drums.
Well,
like,
that's just slap bass as it is.
Well, I'm saying, like, they come together to form a, like, really interesting rhythm, like a...
Where they just...
A
one
composite
will go
rhythm.
out and one will go in, and yeah, I agree. It's really interesting to see the way that, I believe his name is Tim Alexander, I believe, you, like, play, like, sometimes I swear he's not playing at all because it's all the bass percussive notes because I just don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so interesting how similar his notes like the muted bass notes sound to like a really tight tom.
Well, yeah,
you know?
and so, when you're listening to it, you can never get bored. Unlike when you're listening to this next song, The Dream.
The Dream. It's a dream I wanted to wake up from.
Oh, that's kind of mean. This song is really good if you like stoner rock, stoner metal, if you like Pink Floyd's more ambient songs, you'll like this song. That being said, you will not like this song. I said that it's drugged out weirdness, very slow, very repetitive, and...
I wrote discordant space sounds,
Yeah.
background... I wrote good background music for Twilight Zone episode.
Yeah, I wrote mysterious whooshy noises. And then the sort of the comes back for a second, that repeated back a note. Because the majority of the melody of the song comes from this really trim-picked, very muted, although still kind of groovy, and I said it has kind of an Arabic-y rhythm, sort of a almost Phrygian dominant sort of thing. This sort of trim-picked, muted lead guitar sound, which is almost overpowered by the ambience a lot of the time. But it's really fun and interesting when you can hear it and when it's playing, but only if you're into slow progression, floaty music.
I wrote especially for the first 2 minutes, the guitar melody is almost like too positive for the creepy sounding background, because it felt like it was almost like major, except for the occasional random note thrown in that wasn't. And it just felt like the guitars and the background noises didn't really fit.
Well, because it's a dream. It doesn't have to make sense. Haha, prog. No, but speaking of 2 minutes, that's when the bass and the drums kick in for a second. And
I was like, oh, this is going somewhere. Oh, wait, never mind.
And then the vocals come in, and they do this very sort of floaty thing.
Oh, the thing that bothered the crap out of me there was that the vocals and the guitar were doing the exact same thing.
I wrote that. It's kind of like I wrote like melodic death metal, specifically, Arch Enemy. They were doing. It were very much just like they were going together. But the fact is, Les Claypool, who I imagine is singing in the song, because I imagine he sings for most of the songs, is still singing those notes. So it didn't need the guitar to support it.
It either didn't need the guitar or didn't need the vocals there. I think it didn't need the vocals because I don't like Les Claypool's voice, but...
No, I liked it. Like I said, I like this song. I know you don't.
Oh, I dislike this song.
I enjoy this song because it's fun, it's slow. Unlike the rest of the album, there's no really fast-paced part going...
See, my favorite part of the song was the last 2 minutes.
Yeah, or after about 5 minutes, everyone comes in to rock out for a while.
Yeah, for the last 2 minutes, it's actually got a groove, and I wrote it's heavy, it feels... I'd say that's the heaviest section of the album, is this last 2 minutes of the song, and it's just unexpected with the light.
Well, I assume that's either the climax of the dream or the waking up from the dream, and now it's all very serious.
Yeah.
I don't know, because I couldn't hear the words. I listened to this album multiple times, and I couldn't hear the words of the chorus, of the middle section of the bridge, or whatever it is, either time. So, I don't know. But eventually you have to wake up from the dream into the storm? Okay, the storm.
Is another epic.
It's certainly chaotic, much like a storm, and leaves nothing but destruction in its wake. It's not bad.
I like this song.
This song is I would say the proggiest song on the album.
Yes, definitely the proggiest. It does some stereo in the bridge section at about 4 minutes, a little after 4 minutes. I wrote it's a little punchy, and I wrote stereotypical prog because it goes
crazy. It does scale work. This is
in triplets, though.
Yep.
It's like the do. Like it's a weird scale in triplets. That's such a stereotypical prog thing.
And it goes on just a little bit too long. Where you're like, you should stop playing a scale now. Okay, they stop playing a scale.
It goes a beat or 2 beats after you think it should go. Either because it's in a weird time signature or because they're just being weird.
And on this song, it's definitely because it's a weird time signature. This song is so strange. So the intro is this weird scalar melody that's being flanged.
Oh, you forgot about the thunder.
Oh yeah, when it first starts, there's a lightning storm. It goes, and I'm like, dun, 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 dun.
Yeah.
But no. Then the intro is this weird odd.
I wrote this kind of cliche.
Having to start with this.
Yeah, because it's if your song title has to do with thunder or raining or lightning or whatever.
But it's a concept album, so you have to start it that way, right?
I guess. I don't know. I just feel like that's implied. You don't need the actual thunder sound.
Okay. Well, I think it goes well with the concept of telling a story, which this album is, I guess, efforting to do. I found it hard to follow because I have a hard time understanding like Claypool's voice, but that's just me. Maybe you can understand it really easily. I don't know. But okay. The intro is this, like I said, weird odd scale or melody that's got volume swells and flanger all over it. And it's really odd and cool and kind of weird. Like it's definitely an intro that's very prog.
I said it was another one of those melodies where it's like it sounds like it's a normal scale, and then they just throw in one off note, and it's like
I think
expectedly unexpected.
That's just because you don't like prog, it seems.
And maybe that's fair.
Let's say name a prog song you like.
Besides Panic Attack by Dream Theater.
Yeah. Everybody likes Panic Attack by Dream Theater.
Yeah, because that's a great song.
Do you like any Rush songs?
The Trees.
Okay, fine. Anyway, then it gets into the sort of like bass driven, very
I really love in that riff how the bass goes from being like purely rhythmic to purely melodic.
Yeah, well, I said
it flows between a percussive sound to a melodic sound, and I'm like, that is a super cool. Like, I imagine that's super hard to play.
Oh, I mean,
Les Claypool's a fantastic bassist.
I said that it reminded me of a 60s, 70s sci-fi sort of action movie where it's like where it just kept getting more and more intense, and the slaps and the ambient guitar just sounded like a soundtrack. Like it sounded like we were building up into a story, and then it literally breaks into the story where there's this sort of call and response thing going on between the vocals, where there's this sort of old man narrating one or two things, and then there's a chorus going, the thing you said, and it does that a couple times, this sort of weird call and response, and that's, I think, that's like the main, vocal section of the song, and then when it comes after that, the sort of chorus, post-chorus, pre-chorus time, is when finally some rockin' old-fashioned chords come in.
Just like, I was so astounded. I'm like, what the is this, like, chord with a normal drum beat? And I'm like, this is like some, like, 4/4 time, like, actual rock beat for, like, 2 seconds.
Yeah, it really didn't let that go on very long. But it was, for me, it was kind of
it's refreshing.
Well, I think that's the point. It's supposed to draw the audience back in from the sort of, like, musical strangeness. It's supposed to be like, all right, here we're grounded again. We understand this is 4/4, this is straightforward, this is rock, you know this. And then we move into the second half of the song.
It's sort of like, because the whole thing is so weird, it uses, like, standard rock sound to get your attention. Because they're like, were you tuning out all that weird stuff? Here, come back.
I'm sure that was on purpose. Absolutely. Because that's when after that point is when the song changes and becomes something weird and different. Mm-hmm. I said bongos and ambient vocals in post-chorus / bridge. There's this very odd sort of boom, 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 boom.
Well, I think that partially might be bass.
Well, of course it's bass.
Yeah.
It's absolutely, but I also think there's some weird, interesting drumming going on there.
That's what I was talking about earlier with the interplay between the, like, rhythmic bass and the drums. It's really neat.
See, I called it the bridge section, but it's really just this sort of sandwiched in the middle of the start of the song and then the end of the song. There's this bridge section, which I said is very heavy bass melody, very proggy. It does that scale thing of the like you said earlier.
Are you talking about the 4 minutes in section?
Yeah, where it goes, and then there's this guitar and bass, I would call it a duet solo, I guess, or a bass guitar harmony solo, where it's just sort of, I would call it a missing chorus almost, where everything's being sung by the bass and guitar, where it sounds like there should have been words, and they kind of...
Les Claypool can't sing melodically.
Oh, don't be silly. Of course you can. But my point is, like, it's very interesting guitar-bass interplay.
Yeah, I really liked that little solo bit.
Which I don't know about the rest of his album. This is a concept album, and therefore it's kind of structured in a unique way. Mm-hmm. But if the rest of Primus's albums have a lot more of that guitar-bass melodic interplay, I would love to see that, because it sounded amazing. And that was one of my favorite sections of the album, was just this bridge section of this song. And I really liked it. And which is interesting because it just literally at about 6 minutes into this
the song ends.
The song just stops. It just goes purely to silence.
And then there's a new section.
Yeah, then it just comes back.
That is totally different.
And yeah, everyone comes in. You know, the vocals, the bass, the guitars, the drums. Everybody comes in and they rock out.
But it's like it starts out slow and accelerates and accelerates and accelerates.
I said accelerated repeated riff while guitar solos, because it's kind of like wheelie, 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 wheelie.
Yeah.
Everyone's like getting more and more intense, and then that just stops too, and becomes this sort of dun 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 nightmare circus, because it's more like dun 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 dun, and you're like, oh, I'm disquieted. But the interesting thing is, unlike all the other songs, this does feed into the next song, I feel.
Yes. Well, because the next song I feel like almost was supposed to be part of the previous one, except it would have been like a 12-minute song, and that's a little much.
Well, I hate to come to the end, so I'll come to the ends. So, the ends?
Is a fun song, I
It
guess.
certainly ends the album.
Yeah. It starts out with kind of doom spooky.
Yeah, echoey. I said they're echoey tribal drums almost, because they're like dun 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 dun.
Yeah.
And then it switches into this sort of.
I wrote drum circle time because it's like just these different sort of drum beats at the beginning.
Like I said, this song is the shortest song on the album at 1:44, which is why it feels like maybe an outro to. Well, it is an outro.
It is an outro.
But an outro to the last song that they wanted to cut up into parts because that last song was so long. And this definitely brings the Nightmare Circus thing to full, like in total full.
I read that it does a good job of referencing the first song again, because it uses the same like weird warbly vocal tone, and it's got the same guitar tone as well.
And it also includes creepy ambient laughter at some points where it's like ha 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 with that creepy like warbly filter on it, and like the trim pecking and sort of hauntingly minor, and it's all really creepy and weird.
And then it ends with this chord.
Oh no, well first, and then it stops all of that and goes back to the acoustic clean, where it's like half pleasant, half sort of unpleasant, and then it ends.
And then it ends with just this bright, beautiful major chord.
And it's just so, and it has that squeaking again.
Yeah.
Which is, when you combine the Nightmare Chorus with the squeaking, like I said, I'll imagine this whole thing is being told to you by a creepy goblin clown on a unicycle, who just comes in with a acoustic guitar, tells you this story, and then wheels off, and disappearing into the mist of the night, really creepily.
Yeah, that's basically what this album is.
It's such interesting. Well, I guess all we can do now is talk about the album, because the ends, there's not that much to it. It's a really short outro.
Yeah, it's just an outro song.
So let's just talk about the album in full. I thought this album was really, really weird, but I don't know if that's just to be expected from Primus.
I lied at the beginning. There is another Primus album I have listened to in its entirety, like once.
Okay.
It's the one with the cheese.
This is 7 Seas of Cheese or whatever.
Yeah. I listened to that one all the way through once, and it was also really weird.
But yeah, okay. Primus is just a weird dude, and it's interesting.
Primus is a weird dude? Les Claypool's a weird dude?
Les Claypool is Primus, I assume. I don't know how the dynamics work in there. But The Desaturating Seven, the story of 7 goblins, who I believe want to suck all the color out of rainbows, fill their mouths with green, and they're overwhelmed with greed, or something like that, is a line which is
in
kind
one
of
the songs,
directly allegorical, I feel.
Yeah, I feel like I was wondering that the whole time. I'm like, is this whole story like a metaphor for something?
Well, he says, when he's talking about his children and reading the book to them, he says that the stories of greed, gluttony, and I don't know, that versus the uniting of masses is eerily similar to our own time. So there is a point, I guess, he's trying to make. I mean, no one can get this on the nose about the political point they're trying to make as Body Count can. But Primus does a better job of telling a story which illustrates it. And illustrates is a great word, because this album feels very illustrated in how colorful and how weird it is.
If I'm getting like visual images from an album, like this one definitely gives me a lot of like, not really specific images, but like I definitely feel a color palette in my mind. Like, if I were to make a painting of this album, I would know what colors to go to.
Yes, this is, like I said, this is very weirdly prog, really interesting. The Rainbow Goblins by Ul Del Rico. It's very, very, it's like I said, half child. It's got that childhood innocence of being a children's book, but then the adult understanding of that there's something more complex going on, and that's this album. Like, I think you could play this album for children, and they might enjoy about half of it.
Yeah.
And then the other half, only adults could enjoy, I feel. I don't know. Maybe that's crazy.
Yeah, that's why I think it'd be great. Like, I would love to see a movie with this album. Like you know how Pink Floyd has The Wall?
Yes.
I'd love to see a movie based off this album.
Well, and it would have to be done by Terry Gilliam, the animator for Monty Python, and I believe Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. He did that. and Time Bandits. Just very, very odd, spacey, ridiculous, and wonderful. But I 100% agree. I would love to see this turn into... It was funny because his last album was them reimagining the soundtrack of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Oh, cool.
So they took a movie, which was very much colorful and weird, and kind of like how I imagine the color palette this is, and made music from it, whereas this is they're taking something colorful and weird and making songs about it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
They're just a colorful and weird band, I guess.
So, let's go top threes. My favorite is absolutely the Seven. Without doubt, there are rainbow goblins. There are yellow, blue, green, red, and that's just so fun. And it's fun to sing. It's fun to say. It's very goofy and very exciting, and I like it a lot. My second favorite is definitely...
Let's just do top 2 and bottom 2, because there's only 7 songs.
Okay,
so
top 2. Then the second top one is The Scheme. Because it's got that same thing, sort of like, they're scheming around the fire.
You stole my top 2.
Is that in that same order?
In the same order, yeah.
And I know the reason why is because they're the least Primus and the least abnormal.
Yeah, I'd say the 7 reminds me of other Primus songs I've heard.
All right, but they're very short and traditionally structured, which is why I think we like them a lot.
Yeah, because we're just not prog people, I guess.
I guess not. I guess we...
My mind has not been expanded to the true nature of music.
You gotta go back and listen to, like, King Crimson and all that, early prog rockers. Really get into that Casio keyboard era.
Well, why would I listen to Casio keyboards when I can listen to, like, more thrash metal?
That's true. You can always listen to more thrash metal. And speaking of thrash metal, Les Claypool and Kirk Hammett went to school together, and he tried out to be...
I was going to say, Les Claypool tried out to be the bassist of Metallica.
Probably not seriously. They probably just were hanging out and being friends.
Well, Kirk got him to come anyway.
Yeah, and so that imagine what kind of Metallica that would have been.
If we would live in a different world.
Yep. So, does this sell you on Primus?
We didn't say our least favorite song.
Oh, well, all right. My least favorite song would probably be... that's so hard to say.
My least favorite is The Dream.
Mine's The Trek, actually.
Really?
No, mine's The Valley. I apologize.
Oh. I feel like that one's kind of hard to judge because it's the intro.
Yeah, but it's 4:40-something. So it's that long, and that's the problem, is it goes on way too long, and there's way too much weird stuff in it for me, but that's a problem. So I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
And I know The Dream is not your favorite, but guess what? The Dream is my third favorite song on this album.
Of course it is. No, but I was going to say about this being weird, I was going to say one thing that isn't weird about this album is the tone overall. Like, in listening, it reminded me of the Queen's Stone Age album we listened to and the Foo Fighters album we listened to, because the warm, like, slight fuzz.
Yeah, the fuzzy warbly.
But just the warmth of the tone, like, feels very similar to those other two, like, alternative albums.
Yeah, well, it's just all the alt-rock these days is very much, I guess, in the same vein. It's all sort of semi-proggy, warm, fuzzy...
kind of very retro sounding.
Yeah, very, very retro
But,
sounding.
like, retro sounding in, like, a modern way. It's, it's hard to describe, but...
Like, it's funny. I described, when I was in Queen's Stone Age, I said, sounds like Bowie. When I was listening to the Foo Fighters, I said Led Zeppelin, I said Pink Floyd, I said the Beatles. This album, I said Pink Floyd and the Beatles again, I believe. Yeah, all because those are all great bands that you'd want to emulate.
Yeah.
But it's just interesting to hear them all sounding like that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's like all the alt-rock artists got together and were like, okay, you know what tones we're going to have this time? And they, like, went through and decided the tone that they were all going to have.
Yeah, exactly. And that's how I would say it sounds. And so does this album, like, sell you, listen to more Primus because of this album?
No. It's just not... I'm not saying it's bad. It's just not personally my thing. I can't get on board with prog rock very much. But I do really love... Like, I would listen to him play some bass solos.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Like,
I would say this...
I would love to just listen to Les Claypool play bass solos. I don't want to hear his voice. Like, that really doesn't add anything for me. Like, I'd like to hear him and his drummer, like, just...
playing against each other?
Playing together.
See, it's interesting, because this song totally does sell me on Primus. I love, like, except when I heard the 7, and he was like, 4, 5, 6, 7, red, blue, yellow, green. I was like, yes, this is fun, this is goofy, this is silly, this is great. Absolutely, this is fantastic. And so I'm definitely I've been meaning to listen to Primus forever, and the fact that this song is short, sweet, to the point, tells a goofy story that's kind of fun, and had several songs that I quite liked, this totally sells me on Primus.
Oh, well, alright then.
We're just different people, I
yeah,
guess.
Don't know that I don't like Primus.
Okay. So, how would you rate this album?
Yeah, well, that's so hard to rate because it's just so much not really my style. But I'd say for being a weird prog rock album, it's like a 7.
Yeah, I say 7 too.
Yeah,
it's very likable, but you can tell it's a concept. You can tell this was his idea. Like he wasn't just making music that felt good.
That's why I would rate it that highly. Is like even though I personally didn't jive with it that much, like I felt like it really effectively. I felt like it accomplished what it was trying to accomplish.
It jived with itself.
Yes, like this. A lot of the songs, I got the image, like especially the Trek. Like that one, I felt like a Trek. Like it wasn't necessarily enjoyable, but it felt like what it was trying to be.
Absolutely no. Les Claypool can get definitely across the feeling he's trying to get across.
Yeah, and so I really appreciated the album's ability to do that.
All right, so. In the end, the Desaturated Seven, I felt was saturated with quite a bit of interesting color.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Like, I'd give it a listen.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, would you recommend it to friends?
There's some friends I'd recommend it to.
Would you recommend it to others?
Yes. Yes, I'd say so. I'd say give it a listen. Not that you'll enjoy the whole journey, necessarily,
yeah, I would say
any of it. But
this is unlike most things you would listen to. This is just out there. It's kind of weird. And I like that a lot. Sometimes you just need something out there.
Yeah.
All right, well, that was us describing the Desaturated Seven.
Yep.
Everyone is a critic, including us. Bye-bye.